Barefoot climber Charles has made the first ascent of L'Ombre du Voyageur in Haute-Savoie, grading it a lofty 9A. The problem follows a 10-metre long roof crack and is about as steep as it gets, looking pretty much horizontal throughout its entire length. The line extends the 8B he put up in 2019, which takes in the final third of the roof crack. The problem was climbed in Charles's signature style, without climbing shoes or knee pads. French magazine Grimper suggested that Charles struggled to grade the problem, mostly because of its length. At 10 meters, it's almost route-esque, so encapsulating its difficulty within a Boulder grade can be quite tricky. The report also went on to suggest that Charles regarded the problem as closer to 9A+ in his style of climbing. That is to say, without climbing shoes or knee pads. But he settled on 9A as an acknowledgement that climbing it with those would make it an easier proposition, hence the final grading of font 9A. This isn't the first time that Charles has graded a problem font 9A, with the first ascent that he made of no capote only being graded 9A upon the first ascent, but with subsequent repeats suggesting font 8C+, and in the case of Nico Pelersen's repeat, font 8C. This raises the interesting question of whether or not Charles's problems are just easier if you're using climbing shoes. Now, there is no denying the level of strength and talent that Charles Albert has. He is a unique character within climbing because of his approach. And he has repeated countless top-end problems, so it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to grading. But his approach is so different, it's almost like he's playing a different game to the one that 99.99% of other climbers who do use climbing shoes and knee pads are playing. This brings us back to L'Ombre du Voyageur. It's a roof crack, and it also features that 90-degree angle, which from the comfort of my own non-9A climbing armchair, looks prime for a knee pad. At this absolute top end of the sport, it is all about getting those marginal gains. And for those of you who've used a knee pad will know that it's not just marginal, particularly when it comes to steep terrain like roofs, it's maximal. And what was previously a crux can turn into a hands-off rest with a knee pad. Knee pads have also come a long way in recent years. You now get different thicknesses and different sizes, ones that slip on and ones that strap on. There is such a variety available that you can tailor the exact knee pad that works best for the problem or route that you're trying to do, in much the same way that climbers do with climbing shoes. And the end result is that they do make a massive difference. An example quite recently, close to home within the Peak District, was when Will Bosey made the first ascent of the Wild South at Raventor. This problem was originally mooted as a potential font 9A project until Will found a knee bar, and this virtually impossible move that had taken him multiple sessions of trying and failing on was soon completed in 3 sessions shortly after the knee bar had been found, and it went from a potential 9A into an actual font 8C. Elsewhere at Raventor, Mecca, the midlife crisis, Martin Atkinson's classic French 8B+ has now been defiled by knee pads, with climbers such as Ned Feely jokingly getting hands-off rest at what was previously a mid-crux move. There's no doubt that Charles has climbed something exceptionally difficult, but the question is, has it been made more difficult as a result of the lack of climbing shoes and knee pads? We think the answer to that is yes. Whether or not a climber using climbing shoes and a knee pad will repeat the problem and find it easier remains to be seen, but we think there's a distinct chance that might be the case. In climbing, grades are massively subjective, and font 9A is right at the very cutting edge of what is currently possible. Of the 5 9As that are out there, there's a distinct chance that not all 5 will be 9A within the next few years. Only repeats and only time will tell. In the case of Charles, what is clear is that Charles is doing something completely different to anyone else. And as a result, it's very hard to judge his ascents by the standards of others. simply because if you took climbing shoes and knee pads off of the likes of Will Bosey, Sean Rabitou, Nale Hukataival, I can tell you this, they'd find it a lot harder.